So sometimes we think, right, that the people in the Middle Ages, they're kind of all about, chivalry, keeping it in their pants. You might still think that, like, after, if you read The Knight's Tale, which is Chaucer's, first tale, it's all about these two cousins who fall in love with this woman, like, without really touching her or talking to her or anything. It's all from afar. Luckily, The Miller's Tale comes right after it. It can basically tell you that you are wrong if you think that. It's an example of Fabliau, which is a medieval genre. It originates in France. That's why it's got kind of a Frenchy name, Fabliau. And basically, it's like a short little story characterized by like sex and potty jokes. It's kind of like any movie by the Farrelly brothers, like There's Something About Mary, or like that kind of horrific but wonderful scene in Bridesmaids. That's the legacy is there. This Fabliau is the originating thing. So let's talk about what happens in The Miller's Tale. It's a good one. He deliberately tells it to upset the knight who's gone before him. He's told this very courtly, kind of restrained story. The miller's like a little drunk, and he kind of uses this as an excuse to kind of say whatever he wants to, and like doesn't, it doesn't mean to offend whoever he offends. I think we all kind of have a friend like that, and so it might be you. And so what happens basically in the story is that the setup is that there's John, who's a carpenter, and he's kind of old. He lives in Oxford with his young wife, Alison. This creates some inevitable problems that she's like young and hot, because all the Oxford students, they call them clerks in the tale, but it's the same thing. They all want to get with her because she's young and hot. So and John, who's this old carpenter, right? He decides that he's going to rent out one of the rooms in his house to a student to make some extra money, and this is a terrible idea. This guy Nicholas is a student. He moves in, and he immediately sets to work trying to convince Alison to sleep with him. And it doesn't take him too long. So they start hooking up. Meanwhile, another student called Absalon, he kind of works at the church. He falls madly in love with Alison too. So between John and Nicholas, she's like got way too much she can handle. She's not that into Absalon too. So some time goes by, and Nicholas starts deciding he's going to turn his sort of brilliant scholar mind to figuring out how to really spend a night with Alison, rather than just kind of like sneaking off to the broom closet whenever John starts like sawing really loud. He's a romantic. He's a nice guy, and he comes up with kind of a genius but also insane plan. He's going to convince John the carpenter that another biblical flood is coming. And, John's going to believe him because he's like a fancy scholar and he knows stuff. And the only way to ride it out is to basically suspend each one of them in their own little bathtub, like from ropes from the ceiling. Bathtub, I think there's wooden back then. So they're all going to hang out in a wooden bathtub. They each have their own. And then when the flood comes, they're going to cut the ropes and they're going to